Welcome to the Bigger Cash Flow podcast, where we interview business owners and real estate investors that share tips and tricks on how to grow your cash flow and reach financial freedom.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another exciting episode of the Bigger Cash Flow podcast. Today, I'm very excited to bring to you Kaaren Hall, President and CEO of UDirect IRA Services. Despite being in the midst of a recession and mortgage market collapse, Kaaren Hall founded and made a resounding success of UDirect IRA Services. The single mom discovered a strategic way to put her 20 plus years experience in mortgage banking, real estate, and property management to use. The solution was an untapped market for both her skills and for investors, self-directed IRAs. Through UDirect IRA, she has guided tens of thousands of Americans through the process of diversifying their investments using self-directed IRAs. With that said, let's welcome Kaaren to the show. Welcome.
Hey, Bo. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I first found out about you and your services through a investor lunch and learn that we had a couple months back. And this was really exciting because I know a lot of people in my circle who have retirement funds and want to know what they can do with it other than just investing in Wall Street. So, when I heard your presentation, I knew right away I need to get her on the show to kind of expand the tool set of our listeners and learn more about self-directed IRAs, solo 401ks, and much more. With that said, why don't you give our listeners a little bit background about yourself and a glimpse into your personal life? Sure.
Well, my background is that, first I was a radio announcer for 17 years out of college. And then, but also interspersed with that, I was a property manager in Seattle. I managed some apartment buildings. And then I got a real estate license when I lived there in Seattle. And I was a realtor also for a year. So that all those things kind of happened at the same time. And then I became the trailing spouse and got into mortgage loan servicing. And I was in mortgage loan servicing for about 8 years, which was really fantastic because it taught me so much about servicing accounts. And that's a lot of what we do here at UDirect IRA Services. People call up, tell me about my account. That's exactly what I did then. And after that time, I got into mortgage loan origination for another long spell. And so then after that, of course, we had the crash, and I got into self-directed IRAs in 2007. And opened up UDirect in 2009. So it's, a whole background of understanding the real estate, the transactions, the language, the jargon, how to structure deals, things like that. And here at UDirect, when I hire people who have that same background. Because when you're investing in real estate, for example, with a self-directed IRA, and you can invest in other things, but when you're investing in real estate, you want somebody who understands what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I think that's crucial, and that's what I hire for as well.
Awesome. So you've certainly been around the block with, wealth of knowledge in real estate, property management. What kind of inspired you to start UDirect? Was there a triggering moment?
I got fired. So I was working at another company and I was killing it. I was doing a great job. And they walked in one day and said, "We have to let you go." And I'm like, "What? I'm doing a great job." And I was. But then I found out they'd had some difficulties, in their business. And they were letting other people go. And I was one of them. So, okay, well, when one door closes, another one opens. And, it's a recession. And what are you going to do? I mean, I couldn't be a radio announcer in Orange County because there's all the radios in LA. I wasn't going to originate loans during the Great Recession. That wasn't the thing to do. If people weren't borrowing money, banks weren't even lending money for a while there. And so really the only way I could go forward was with self-directed IRAs, which was what I knew. So sure enough, I started my own company, and here we are in our 10th year. So yay. And hoping about 5,000 people. We've got just under $500 million of assets under management. So yay, going strong. Put 2 kids through college. So
wow,
the single mom part is right, but now they're grown-ups at 10 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, you certainly went against the grain when everybody was kind of closing up shop. You opened and you just grew this thing into, what it is today. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, at that time too, banks were folding. So people didn't know where they could get money. They're looking, I can't go get a loan, or I've got this rehab. I need a takeout loan. Where am I going to find this cash? And the answer was self-directed IRAs, because I just got the new number. It's an $8.8 trillion pool of money, just IRAs. Forget the 401ks and the rest, which is about 30 trillion altogether. But that's where you can find capital if you're looking for capital for deals. And that's what people figured out in 2009. And so it was a perfect time to start a self-directed IRA business, because it was exactly what America needed at the time to find cash to restart our country. So so many things happen on a grassroots level, from person A lending to person B, as opposed to institutional situations. And self-directed IRAs really paved the way for that.
What is self-directed IRAs? Can you give us a 10,000 level foot overview in terms of what it is and how can investors learn more about it?
Sure. So if you know what an IRA is, it's an individual retirement arrangement or individual retirement account. So that's like a bucket. And so whether it's a self-directed IRA or a typical IRA, it's an IRA. So what makes it self-directed is the kind of asset you put in the bucket. So if you want to learn about IRAs, you can go on the IRS's website to irs.gov, look up publication 590. It'll tell you all about traditional and Roth IRAs, right? Those are the same rules for self-directed IRAs. It's not a different kind of IRA, but what is different is the kind of asset you can put in that IRA bucket. It's not just stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Now it's like so many things. It's real estate, it's private stock, it's precious metals, notes, so many different kinds of assets. So it just adds to the asset classes that your retirement funds can invest in, and still stay tax-free in a Roth, or tax-protected in a, tax-deferred in a traditional or simple or something like that. So.
Yeah. No, I talked to many different investors, and a lot of the difficulties that they run into early on is the lack of capital. And, they might begin with a HELOC or some savings that they had in, their savings account or CDs or whatnot that they liquidate to start investing. And they're like, hey, Bo, I ran out of capital. What should I do next? And I'm like, hey, have you checked out your retirement accounts? And a lot of them are very confused, because they're like, can't you only invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds? But like you just said, like a bucket, I love that analogy. I kind of thought of it like a vehicle where you can kind of put in, Wall Street funds, or you could do retirements, gold, all these other things that you could put into this vehicle that you control, right?
For sure. But if it's your own, but your IRA isn't going to invest in your business, but you can your friends can invest in your business. Mm-hmm. Because when you're investing with a self-directed IRA, first, there are things that we're going to talk about later, but prohibited transactions, things you can't do. And you're disallowed to your IRA. So you have to stay arm's length.
Yep.
But there are so many things you can do, and you can raise capital from other people. So you could say, look, will you loan my business money? And this is the terms, what my business will pay you back. So people can be a debt or equity partner in your business. You can certainly do that and raise capital that way.
What can we invest in, and what are some restricted investments?
Right. Well, with the self-directed IRA, what the IRS says is there are only two things you can invest in, and that's life insurance contracts and collectibles, like a fine wine collection or an art collection or some collectible cars. Those are not assets you can put in a self-directed IRA or any IRA, because remember, the rules are the same. Also, your IRA isn't going to be an equity partner in an S corporation, because S corps don't allow it. Your IRA can lend money to an S corp, be a debt, partner, but not equity. Okay, so that's what you can't do. That's what the IRS says. Now, there's another layer. Every single self-directed IRA provider will have asset classes that they consider not to be administratively feasible. What does that mean, right? So there are asset classes that are difficult to value, or can be troublesome or expensive to custody. So each self-directed IRA custodian can decide what assets they will and won't custody as a business decision for that company. But mostly, like we don't custody racehorses, for example, or livestock. Kind of smelly to have them in the office. I'm just kidding. But there are companies that will do it. I mean, you pay for it, but there are companies that will custody those assets. So it just depends on what you want to have custody, what kind of asset.
If we frame this conversation in the mindset of a real estate investor, for example, taking a step back, when you said the same rules of an IRA apply, Can a self-directed also be a traditional versus a Roth self-directed?
Absolutely. Every kind of IRA can be self-directed. Traditional, Roth, SEP, simple, spousal, inherited IRAs, solo 401k can all be self-directed.
And do the same contribution and distribution rules apply as well?
All the same rules. And you'll find those again on the IRS's website, irs.gov, publication 590. Or you could talk to your tax person. Either way.
Gotcha. And you mentioned a little bit about prohibited transactions. So let's dive into that. So if I'm a real estate investor and I have $50,000 in my retirement account, what can I do with it? Can I purchase a rental property fully, all cash, or can I invest it as a private lending to other people? What are some transactions that you typically see?
You can do both of those. So say for example, your IRA has 50,000 in it and you find a property that's 100,000. It's obviously not in California, but as an example. So you don't have enough. So there are things you can do in this case, like your IRA could partner with someone else, or your IRA could actually borrow money, but it would have to be a non-recourse loan. Your IRA does not go out and get a bank loan to purchase a property, and your IRA isn't a down payment on a regular bank loan kind of a situation, but there is a special kind of loan for IRAs called a non-recourse loan. And we do have a list that we can share with your listeners. If you email us at info@UDirectIRA.com, we'll send you a list of those non-recourse lenders. So these are all the asset classes you can invest in. But did you want to talk about prohibited transactions? Would you like me to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Well, some people are disallowed to each other. Like you and I, we could, we're not spouses. We're not, you're not my dad or my son. So that's okay. But it's just to say the people who are disallowed are up and down your family tree. So the disallowed people are your parents and grandparents and their spouses, right? Then you and your spouse, and then your children and your grandchildren and their spouses, all disallowed to your IRA. Plus any 50% business partner or any fiduciary, anybody who has a fiduciary duty, to your IRA, like maybe your CPA or your realtor or your attorney, they have a fiduciary relationship and would be disallowed. Okay, so now you know who you can't play with, but you can invest with your brothers and sisters, your cousins, your aunts and uncles, your nieces and nephews. They're fine in the family tree. Also your friends and business associates. You can invest with them and they can buy into your deals. But you just stay away from prohibited transactions, stay away from disallowed people. So now that you know who you can't invest with, here's prohibited transactions. So you've got, first off, an IRA is all about later. It's not about investing and getting a lot of money so you can pay your bills today. It's about investing for retirement. Because wow, is there a crisis in America when it comes to retirement? We are so unprepared. So many baby boomers retiring. Gosh, do you know what? In fact, they call it the silver tsunami. 10,000 people are turning 65 every day for the next 10 years. These people need services. They need so many things, but there is just, wow, we just have to save for that day. So that's what self-directed IRAs are all about. So your IRA isn't to benefit today, it's to benefit you in the future. So your IRA is not for personal benefit. So what that means is your IRA doesn't make a loan to your own business. Your IRA also doesn't do business with disallowed people. So your IRA doesn't, buy into your wife's company, like have an equity share of your wife's company so she can get started on her way. You just don't invest with disallowed people. And you can't have personal or present benefit from your IRA dollars. That's a prohibited transaction. Another one is just doing the buy-sell trade thing between your IRA and any of those disallowed people. You just don't. Keep everything arm's length. Stay away from those people with your IRA. But what really gets people is that you're not allowed, a disallowed person, I should say, is not allowed to offer goods, services, or facilities to the plan. Like, what does that mean? So say we had this gentleman, he's a realtor. No, actually, he was just buying a house. He was buying a house, and we're going through the paperwork, looking at the purchase contract, and we get to the end, and it's his dad that's the listing agent. No. His dad is disallowed offering services to the plan as a listing agent. And so that's a prohibited transaction. So, but then additionally, the dad wanted a commission. So that's another prohibited transaction. That's having a disallowed person receive personal benefit. So you have to steer clear of prohibited transactions. So what we do at UDirect, like what do? We will talk to people who call us, hey, I'd like to open an account. Well, that's great. And we want your business. That's wonderful. But we don't want your business if we know that you're a train heading into a brick wall. We want to know about your deal. Who are the people in your deal? What are you looking to do? And so that you have a positive experience and don't run into these prohibited transaction rules. But guess what? Whether or not you commit a prohibited transaction, is entirely on the account holder. It's entirely the account holder's responsibility. It's self-directed, so there's a lot more responsibility on the self-directed person to be knowledgeable. So you probably aren't. If you've never heard of a self-directed IRA, you call us and we'll tell us about your deal, and we'll explain to you what could or couldn't be prohibited in that deal. So that's what we do. But ultimately, the onus is on the account holder not to commit a prohibited transaction.
Gotcha. So just to summarize that real quick, what you're saying is that you guys would attempt to understand the deal to make sure it's not prohibited and it's within the rules. However, you're not advising them to tell them whether this is a good or bad deal.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're not financial advisors. We're not tax people. We're not lawyers. And so we don't offer that kind of advice. Even if we were, it's not our place to offer that kind of advice to a self-directed IRA, investor. So
Gotcha. Hey, I just had a random thought that popped into my head. What if I have an investor, that I know that I befriended at a local RIA meeting, and he has $100,000 in his, self-directed, and I have $100,000 in my self-directed. Can we lend each other the same amount at the same terms? Would that be considered a non-arm's length transaction?
It would be considered a prohibited transaction. Here's why. So you've got $100,000, he's got $100,000. Boom, quid pro quo. You just lend it to each other. You just received personal benefit from your IRA money. Like, hey, I'll give you this if you give me that. So you just personally benefited from your IRA, and it would be a prohibited transaction.
Gotcha. Okay. I was thinking, wait, is there by chance a loophole? But I'm sure, yeah, people have thought of that.
The IRS, man, they have thought about it. I'll tell you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of we talked about a lot of these benefits, and we've broken some of the myths as it comes to retirement accounts. Not only can you invest in real estate, but other tangible assets. It's not limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That's awesome. Right. Yeah. So what are some of these costs that might be involved in setting up an account, and who are the players in this field?
Yeah, there are players in the field for sure, and some of them will charge on a sliding scale. So the more your assets are worth, the more they charge you. Or they charge you a base fee plus a quarterly fee, or they have a sliding scale of what they're going to charge. So to take a look at all that, we charge, we're probably the lowest in the industry. We charge a flat fee of $275 a year, regardless of the number of assets in your account and regardless of their value. That's our annual flat fee for your account. Okay. Now there are other fees, like there's a wire fee of $15. So basically, to get started, it's a $50 setup fee, in which you pay directly before you or at the time you open your account. A $275 annual fee, which comes later, and then a $325 minimum deposit. That's not a fee. It's just your own cash that's sitting there. So that's how you get started. So those are the basic fees, and our fees are on our website, UDirect. The letter U, UDirectIRA.com. We have our fee schedule there. It's in our application. But our fees are very, very reasonable for the industry.
Gotcha. I had a quick question. So REITs are the things these days, right? Whether it be Fundrise or Peer Street, or there's a lot of hedge funds as well that you're able to invest nominal amounts, maybe even $50 a month. If you have a self-directed IRA, are you allowed to maybe make contributions every 2 weeks or a month? Is there any restrictions, or is there a fee each time you make contributions?
Okay, well, the jargon with IRAs, I think we should clear that up, because a contribution has a different meaning. So in the IRA world, a contribution means it means like you're going to write a check out of your checkbook and put it in your IRA. That's a contribution. But what you're talking about is every week, can you invest in a Peer Street or something like that?
Yeah, for example.
Yeah, you can, but yes, there are certainly fees. So you probably want to do it, maybe not every week, maybe once a quarter or whatever. But there are fees. We waive the first 6 transaction fees for the lifetime of the account. Not
Awesome.
annually, but for the, over the first 6 of the lifetime of the account. So yes, and REITs, absolutely. People invest, there's self-directed IRA and REITs all the time. I mean, we do that a lot. So you can certainly do that.
Definitely not endorsing any of these companies that I just mentioned, but a lot of investors might be investing in REITs or, these smaller funds with after-tax dollars, but using a self-directed IRA immediately boosts your game because these are tax deferred, right? So I think that got me really excited when I heard about self-directed.
Yeah, and you're going to be using this money. Don't think that just because you have to wait to use it, it's a big deal, because, you're going to be 59 and a half. You're going to get there. And when you get there, you're still young, right? I mean, 60 is the new 40 or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
You need that money then too. And when all this retirement savings was thought up, people didn't live as long as we do now. And now you may be retired as long as you were working. So, wow, I mean, you worked all these years for all these dollars. Now you better have saved some so you can retire when you're not working, right? And you can have money. And that's what this is about. So, right, it goes into your retirement account for later. Like being your own best friend.
We talked about self-directed IRAs, and I wanted to dabble a little bit into solo 401ks. But before we do that, was there anything that I may have missed that our listeners might want to hear out before in the terms of self-directed IRAs?
Well, we talked about prohibited transaction, who's allowed, who's disallowed. We talked about asset classes you can invest in, talked even about non-recourse lending. So we've covered a lot of the basics, and we've talked about fees. So we've covered quite a bit of it. Yeah.
In terms of account maintenance, what are some things that I need to do? Is there monthly statements that I need to review, or any filings with taxes that I need to be aware of?
Well, we do the tax filing and the record keeping, but what you need to do as the account holders, log into your account, and every month you'll get a PDF of your account statement. Save it to your own hard drive. Save that. And do that every month. But also, are you expecting proceeds from an investment? Well, look in your account, make sure that they posted, because we're not going to know that we didn't get a check. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like we'll know if we'll post all the ones we receive, or a wire, we'll post what we receive. But if you were supposed to get it and we're not, there's no alarm bell that goes off in our head or in our system. So you need to make sure that you're looking to make sure that your proceeds post when they're supposed to.
If I have an investment or a private lending deal that I want to invest in, what's the timeline in terms of, hey, Kaaren or Karen's team, I have this deal and I want to invest in it. Can you help me disperse the funds, to when it actually gets dispersed?
Right. Well, the whole process is a 3-step thing. So you open an account, that's one process. Then you fund the account. You bring the money in from another source, like maybe your old 401k or an IRA, that's funding. But after the account's open and funded, now you're talking about investing. So if it's a brand new account, we can be looking at your investment docs, getting it all queued up. So when the money does come in, boom, we push the button, money goes out, and then now you've self-directed, right? We can do that. So when you've opened your account, a little bit after that day, a specific transaction coordinator, they'll reach out to you, they'll say, hey, this is my name, and I'll be working with you, and here are the rules, and here's how you do it. So then you send that transaction coordinator your investment docs, and we review them. So what we've added a couple of years ago to our website is a doc upload portal.
Awesome.
So your precious information that's secure stays as secure as possible. We don't want some hacker getting into your email, finding that in your email, and then using it later on. So you can use our doc upload portal to scan it and upload those documents to us, and we review them. What we're looking at is not, is it a good investment, but does it have all the elements of an investment? Is IRA actually receiving an asset in exchange for the money? Because sometimes there are these deals like, oh, we'll send your money, we'll put it in an escrow account and hold it for you until we find a deal for you. Then we'll, no. Your IRA has to receive an asset at the time that it's investing. So we want to make sure of that. We want to make sure that the asset is vested correctly as well. So that's what we're looking for. So say, for example, your account's open and funded already. It's been funded for months, and now you found your deal, and now you bring it to us. It's going to take 24, 48 hours to fund that. I think that's a big thing. And a lot of other companies take a lot longer than we do to fund deals.
Yeah, in this hot real estate market, I have actually posted on this on my blog. Speed is crucial. So you want to be working with the right players who is able to, work at your speed if you're trying to take down good deals. It's very competitive right now.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's segue into solo 401k. So I personally am really interested in this topic. I've heard a little about it. I try to do some Googling, but I want to hear it from the experts. What is it and how is it different from a self-directed IRA, and who can benefit from this type of account?
Yeah, excellent questions. First off, a 401k is a 401k, all right? It's not an IRA. It's completely different. So you can self-direct a solo 401k, you can self-direct an IRA, but IRAs are kind of in one universe. They're individual retirement accounts. 401ks are supposed to be employer plans, and they're different. So with the solo K, it's sort of a hybrid between the full-blown employee plan, like you might have where you work, and an individual plan. So when you get a solo K, first off, there are two parts. An IRA has one part, but the self-directed IRA has two buckets: the plan, or the employer portion, and then the employee portion, or the participant portion, okay? Plan, participant, all right? But when you're self-employed, you're all those things. So to have a solo 401k, first you must be self-employed, okay? And you must have active income to contribute. You can contribute up to 25% of your income, or $56,000, whichever's less. So who determines that? It's your tax person. They're going to look at your taxes and they're going to tell you how much of your income you can contribute to a solo 401k. So there's that. You can also, if you have a 401k from another company, you can roll it over into, or an IRA, you can roll it over, transfer it into a solo K. So that's how you put the money in. So with the solo 401k, it's different because you are actually the trustee of your plan. So when you sign the documents when your solo 401k purchases, you're signing as a trustee of the plan. Now, then that's how it's vested. Now, and there's more to say about that. I don't want to go too granular. But what's also important to know is that there are two buckets. So in the employer bucket, you can contribute, the employer portion, but the employee participant bucket, you can put, like if you're over 50, it's $25,000 a year. And if you're under 50, it's $19,000 a year. You can put into that bucket, right? Regardless, as long as you earn that much money. Now, say for example, you have a traditional IRA. Well, if you're under 50, you can put $6,000 in there. But if you've got a solo 401k, the same bucket, $19,000. So yay, you can save more. It's wonderful. But also that bucket can be Roth. And you can contribute to that Roth bucket regardless of income. With a Roth IRA, you can make too much and you can't contribute at all. But in the Roth bucket of a solo 401k, well, there isn't that limit, that income limit. So that's cool. So you can really contribute a lot of money, 3 times as much into the Roth bucket of a solo 401k. So these are all some of the bells and whistles. Plus, with a 401k, you can take a plan loan. All right. You can't borrow from an IRA except for 60 days, once in 12 months. But you can take a bona fide loan from your 401k, but you have to pay it back. You have to pay it back within 5 years and in at least monthly or at least quarterly payments at a market rate. So it can't be zero. It's actually an investment. You're investing in your own IRA or your own solo 401k. So your IRA can borrow money. Sweet. And you can do whatever you want with it. It's your personal money. You have to pay it back. All right. Also, we talked about non-recourse loans and IRAs borrowing money. When IRAs borrow non-recourse money to invest, they face a certain kind of tax called UDFI, right? Solo 401k doesn't face that tax. So those are some of the huge benefits to having a solo 401k. You can have a Roth bucket. You can contribute more. You can take a plan loan. It's not subject to the UDFI tax for borrowing money.
That was a lot of information. So let's take a moment to unpack some of that.
Yeah.
First of all, you mentioned that you can borrow from your solo 401k. Are there any limits to the borrowing? Do you set it yourself as the owner, or is there some sort of government limit?
There's a government limit for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 50% of your account value or $50,000, whichever's less.
Okay. certainly the big differences are there's a much higher contribution limit and there's no phase out in terms of what you can put into the Roth, even if you make much higher income, right?
Correct.
So you mentioned a couple times you have to have, qualified business active income. I am thinking in the eyes of a real estate investor who might have 20 rentals, right? And he's making pretty good income. Could that possibly be viewed as acceptable for a solo 401k?
Right. Well, check with your tax person, but I do believe that rental income is passive income and does not qualify.
Okay.
I do believe that rental income, that fixing and flipping, that kind of income is active, and that can be counted as your income, but not passive income. It has to be active income.
Gotcha. Okay. And you mentioned UDFI. For our listeners who are not familiar with that term, can you help us understand
I'm trying to brush past that one.
Yeah.
I'll talk about unpacking, but I'll be concise here. It's UDFI, unrelated debt financed income tax. So if your IRA borrows money, your IRA has to pay a tax on the proceeds your IRA earned because of borrowed money. But here's how that works. Say your IRA buys a $100,000 home. $70,000 was IRA money, $30,000 was a loan. So here comes your $1,000 rent check back into your IRA. Well, $700 of that rent check your IRA earned because you saved. But $300 of that your IRA earned because of debt. So that $300 is subject to the tax. So talk to your tax advisor, and you can look it up too on the IRS's website again, which is irs.gov, publication 598. That will tell you about that tax. You can read all about it and talk to your tax people about how it would impact you. So you know how you and I, we file a 1040, probably getting ready to do that right now,
Yeah.
But your IRA files a 990T. That's the kind of return an IRA files if it owes this tax.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we certainly covered a lot of ground today. Is there anything else that we might have missed that you want to cover? If not, we'll dive right into how our listeners can get a hold of you.
Well, I think the only thing I would add two things. One is contribute to your IRA no matter what. Contribute to retirement because you can, because maybe you're going to get a tax break if you do. But for gosh sakes, be your own best friend and save for your future self. Do your future self a favor and save money. Super, super important, right?
Love it.
So make a contribution today. And by the way, up until April 15th, if you didn't make a 2018 contribution, you can make a 2018 contribution still and a 2019 contribution. So if you don't have, so you can do that and maybe get a tax break if you're putting it in a traditional. Check with your tax advisor. I want to say that. The other thing is when you're investing, oh my gosh, do your homework. What are you investing in? Do you understand your asset class? Do you know who you're investing with? If your IRA lends money to somebody, that's great, but did they record your lien? Is it a secured loan? Was your interest recorded? Do your due diligence on the front end, do your due diligence on the back end. If you're going to invest with somebody, well, talk to people who've invested with that person. What was their experience like? Did they have a good experience? All these things are crucial. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, words of wisdom. A lot of investors might be too late, like in January, February, hitting up their CPAs and be like, hey, can I do anything to reduce my tax liability for fiscal year 2018?
Right. Yeah.
There's not much you can do, if any, right? But like you just mentioned, I almost forgot that IRAs, you can still contribute up until the filing deadline. So that's one thing you can do to maybe reduce your tax liability just a little bit. Even if you're at that borderline of going over to the next bracket, that might just do it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Savings. Yeah.
Yeah. So where can our listeners go to learn more about you, your company, if they want to get this thing started?
Oh, awesome. Primarily our website, which is the letter U, UDirectIRA.com. And we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, even Instagram. We're all over the place. But to get your account started, UDirectIRA.com. Email us, info@UDirectIRA.com. And then, set up a time to talk or give us a call and tell us about your deals or your questions. And that's what we're here for.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to provide value for our listeners.
Thank you.
If you guys thought this was helpful, please do us a favor and give us a review on iTunes. We'll see you right back here next week for another exciting episode of the Bigger Cash Flow Podcast. Thank you for listening to the Bigger Cash Flow podcast. Please remember that opinions of the guests are their own, and nothing on this show should be considered personal or professional advice. Please consult your tax, legal, or financial advisor for personal advice that fit your unique situation. See you next time.